You're listening to the weekly Parsha podcast, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Shemesh Israel, 5776, 2016. This week, the Parsha that's being read outside of Israel is Parsha's Balak. And this Parsha, for me, is a celebration of 9 years, a completion of 9 cycles around the Torah. I started 9 years ago with Parsha's Pinchas, and I complete 9 years, so it's a very exciting time for me that we've been putting out this Parsha podcast every single week. As I mentioned in previous weeks, I'm working on putting out a sefer. I've spent many years working on this project, and I've collected over $1,000 toward the publication of this book. I need another $9,000 approximately in order to be able to put out the book, to do the printing, the shipping, and to do some advertising as well. I'm encouraging all of you, my listeners, to take part in this really special project, and especially now as I come to the completion of 9 years, it's really an opportune time to head over to my website, arigoldwag.com, go onto the contact page, and there's a button to be able to donate towards my book, which you can make note of in the comment when you donate. Thank you to all those who have donated, and I thank all those who will donate as well. Now I'd like to share with you a thought on this week's Parsha, Parsha's Balak, and we find at the very end of this week's Parsha, we have the whole Parsha which speaks about the brachos, the blessings that Bilam gave to the Jewish people, even though he tried to give curses. Hashem didn't allow him to. But at the end of the Parsha, as our Chazal frame it, as the sages frame it, we find that the Jewish people come to a place called Shittim. We'll speak about the concept of the place of Shittim, but they come to a place called Shittim, and it's there that Bilam gives the advice to the king of Midian to cause the Jewish people to sin. As a result of the sin the Jewish people do, they get involved in licentious behavior with the daughters of Moab, the daughters of Midian. As a result of that, the Jewish people fall from their great level. 24,000 people die in a magefa, in a plague. And Bilam is able, through his suggestion, to cause the Jewish people to sin, and in so doing cause them to lose a certain level of their greatness. Or at least so it seems. When we read the story, it's very difficult to understand. It seems clear that Hashem did not want Bilam to give any kind of curses to the Jewish people. Hashem made it very clear that you can't curse the Jewish people because they are blessed. By definition, their very essence is that they are blessed. And yet we see that Bilam is able to get through, to find the chink in the armor, so to speak, of the Jewish people by causing them to sin. We need to understand what is the idea here, what is the concept of this. How is it that he can't cause them to be cursed, but he can cause them to sin and thereby lose the good graces, so to speak, of God and cause 24,000 of them to die? Now I'd like to share with you some midrashim, and as we read these midrashim, we need to notice that there is a theme that's underlying these midrashim. It's very interesting, remarkable, and needs explanation. It says like this. Vayeshev Yisrael b'Shittim, it says that the Jewish people, they dwelled at a place called Shittim. And this was the place where the Jewish people were to sin with the daughters of Moab, with the daughters of Midian. The midrash tells us a remarkable thing. Halacha, we know, B'zchus kama devarim negalu Yisrael mitzrayim. There was a certain merit, the merit of a few different things that the Jewish people were redeemed from Egypt. Shana Rabbeinu, our sages taught, B'zchus arba devarim negalu Yisrael mitzrayim, that there were 4 things that were the merits for which the Jewish people were redeemed from Egypt. First, Shaloshinu es Shmaisan. They didn't change their names. They still had Jewish names. Shaloshinu es Lashonim. They didn't change their language. They continued speaking in Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew. V'logilu mister shalahem Shemaisha Omer lahem. There was another thing, a third thing, which was that Moses had revealed something to them, and they did not reveal this mystery. That he said to them, Mashallah ish mishchenta kli kesef kli zav. At the very beginning, they were told that they were going to be able to take all of the gold and silver of the Egyptians. This was something which they knew about for 12 months. And they didn't reveal this secret to the Egyptians. So it's the third thing. Here comes the fourth thing, which is very interesting. That throughout the Jewish people's stay in Egypt, they never had any licentious behavior. They never involved themselves with immoral acts, immoral sexual acts. Shekein Ksiv, and we know that this is true based on a verse in Shir Hashirim, in the Song of Songs. Gan nol achoisi kala. The verse refers to the fact that the Jewish people were like a garden which was locked. Ilu azcharim, this refers to the men who never had licentious behavior. Gal no'ul mayan chosum ila b'sulois. Another part of the verse refers to the fact that they were locked up, that they were closed, that they didn't allow themselves to be used in a way which was inappropriate. This is referring to the daughters of the Jewish people, to the women. So we see something very interesting, that throughout the Jewish people's stay in Egypt, and for 40 years afterwards, as we're going to see, the Jewish people were not involved in any kind of immoral acts. Teida lecha, how do you know indeed that the Jewish people were not involved in any licentious behavior? There was only one woman of the entire Jewish people who had been involved in an illicit act with an Egyptian. The verse tells us and makes it known to us, it refers to Shlemis Bas Divri, to this woman who used to go out and speak and say hello to people in an inappropriate way. And her son, she ended up having relations with an Egyptian. Her son ended up being the one who cursed God. But it was only her. She was the only one who had done this kind of behavior. All the 40 years that the Jewish people were in the wilderness, they also didn't have any kind of licentious behavior, until they came to this location, to Shittim. And that's why the verse says, that the Jewish people lived, or they settled, in this place called Shittim. And the Jewish people began to act in ways that were inappropriate to them in licentious behaviors. Now, what was the reason? Why did this happen here? What's the understanding of it? The midrash is telling us that for hundreds of years, the Jewish people had been chaste. They had been perfect when it came to these matters. But all of a sudden, right here at Shittim, something changed, something switched, and they fell into this behavior which was wrong. What's the understanding? Why? Why did this happen? So midrash continues and says Shittim. What does the word Shittim mean, which is the name of the place? She'asu shtus. The shorish, the root of the word Shittim, which is the name of this place, is the same as the word shtus, which means a foolishness. A stupid thing, a funny, weird thing. We have a verse that tells us that if a person has illicit relations with a woman, he's missing his heart. He's missing his heart. There's something foolish that's happened to him. It's something that if he would be moving, if he would be thinking and acting in an intellectual way, so that's not something that could happen to him. But why does it happen to a person? It happens because of a shtus, of a foolish way of thinking. And the Jewish people came to a place called Shittim, and somehow they entered into that space of foolishness. What's the understanding of this? The midrash continues. So the midrash tells us that why they begin to go and have this illicit behavior. Yesh mayonish megalim gibarim, says the midrash, an amazing thing. There are springs, there are water springs, that if you drink their water, so the result will be that your children will be strong. Yesh chalashim. There are other ones that if you drink the water, the children will be weak. Yesh na'in. There's water sources that if you drink it, the children are beautiful. Yesh mecha'arin. If there's other water sources that if you drink it, the children will be ugly. Yesh tznuin. There's water sources that if you drink from that water, the children will be modest. Yesh shtufim bezima. And there are other water sources that if you drink from that water, so then the children will be involved in illicit behavior, in illicit sexual relations. Umayan Shittim shel znus haya. Very interesting, the midrash tells us that the waters of Shittim, the springs that were in that place called Shittim, that water, if you would drink it, it would cause a person, it would cause his children, it would cause a person to be led towards znus, toward illicit behavior. V'hu mashkil istaim. Very interesting. This water was the water source of a place called Sodom. Sodom, a few hundred years before, had been destroyed. But that place, where did the water come from? It came from Shittim. The water came to Sodom. They drank that water. The result was that they became people who were involved in illicit behavior. How do we know that this is true of Sodom? We find that they said, Ayeh ha'anoshim asher bo elecha, hoitziem elenu v'nei da'im. The verse tells us that when Lot had allowed these men, which were actually malachim, they were really angels, to come, to visit in his house, to stay the night in his house, so the people of Sodom came and they said, bring them out. We want to have illicit homosexual relations with them. So from this verse, we see that the Sodomites were people of very low moral caliber when it came to these areas. And what was the reason for it, says the midrash? It was because of the fact that there was a ma'ayan there. The water, the source of the water in Sodom was the waters of Shittim. And if you drink the waters of Shittim, if a person drinks that water, so it causes them to be drawn toward illicit behavior. Now the midrash tells us something which is a side point, but also very important to know. Because of the fact that that particular water source, that spring, was cursed, it had a negative influence on the people. In the future time, Hashem is going to dry it out. Shneimar, as the verse says, it's a verse in Joel, chapter 4, verse 18. There's going to be a source of water that comes out from God's house, meaning from the Beis HaMikdash, from the temple. That water is going to go out towards the Nachal HaShittim, towards the river of Shittim, which until this time had dried up, and it had caused what it caused. It caused the negative behavior of the Jewish people. It caused the negative behavior of Sodom. But it's going to be purified. The water of the Beis HaMikdash, the water of God, so to speak, the water of goodness that causes good things to happen, is going to be what replenishes that place. And the Nachal HaShittim, the river of Shittim, which until now has been a source of negative behavior, will no longer be a source of negative behavior. Very interesting. The Midrash finishes off with a powerful statement. Avraham, from the days of Abraham, no member of the Jewish people had been involved in licentious behavior. But once they came to Shittim, at that point, because they drank of its waters, nifratzu biznus, the result was that the Jewish people got involved in illicit behavior. So it's very interesting because this midrash basically is telling us that somehow there's a connection. As the Jewish people are sitting here in a place, they're dwelling in a place called Shittim, on the edge of the area of Midian, the edge of the area of Moab, these places about to enter into the land of Israel, we're at the end of the Jewish people's sojourn in the wilderness. At that moment, they are led by the Ananei HaKavod, by the clouds of God's glory to this place called Shittim. It's very strange. First of all, you see that God brought them to this place. Reb Chaim Friedlander mentions the fact that they were brought here to have this kind of nisayon, this kind of difficult situation, this challenge. But Hashem brought them to this place, and this place was connected to Sodom. And since the time of Avram, and let's not forget that Avram also was in that time when Sodom was destroyed, when their behavior came to a point where they had to be destroyed. But since the time of Avraham, the Jewish people hadn't done anything wrong in this vein. They hadn't had any kind of licentious behavior. But for some reason, at this moment, there was this nisayon, this challenging situation that occurred, and the Jewish people had to go through this. And the question is why? Why is this happening now at this specific moment in time? And why is it so connected to Sodom? What is the depth of the understanding of that? I'd like to share with you one more midrash, which also indicates the connection between the time that the Jewish people were about to enter into Israel and that time so many years before when Sodom had been destroyed. The midrash says like this, Misha pasach biznus tchila hishlin lebasoif. There's another point of connection. The point of connection is like this, that way back when Sodom was destroyed, there was another story that occurred at the same exact moment. And that was the story of Lot and his two daughters. They thought that the whole world had been destroyed, and as a result of that, the older daughter said to the younger daughter that we should be with our father, so that we will be able to continue mankind. Mankind has been destroyed except for us and our father. We need to get pregnant so that mankind can continue. Now, Misha Pasach Biznus Tchila Hishin Lebasoif, the midrash says to us something amazing. It says that the one who started off, the one who was the first one of the two sisters to be interested in having this illicit relations with her father, so in the end, she's the one who finished it off. What does that mean? The Benois Moav, the daughters of Moab. Moab was the one who came from that illicit relationship between the daughter and her father. It was the first one who named her son Moab. Now, she was the first one to go and have that relationship with her father. Her great-grandchildren were the ones who were machshel the Jewish people, who caused the Jewish people to sin. Let's see. How do we know that the mother of the people of Moab was the one who started off with this licentious behavior? The verse tells us that the older one said to the younger one, let us go get our father drunk and sleep with him. She's the one who did it first, the midrash goes on to tell us, and she's the one who showed her sister what to do. She was the first, the one that started off in this illicit behavior. So her great-great-granddaughters completed the act after her. As the verse tells us, Liznois al-Benois Moav, that the Jewish people ended up having illicit relations with the daughters of Moab. So we see here that there's a twofold connection to the story of Sodom. One is that the Jewish people drank of the waters which cause illicit behavior, just as Sodom had been involved in illicit behavior as a result of drinking the water, so too the Jewish people drank from that same water, and it caused them to sin as well. The second point is that there's another connection to Sodom, to that story, to that point in time, which is that the Jewish people, how did they end up having illicit relations? It was with the very women, the very great-granddaughters of the woman who had illicit relations as a result of the destruction of Sodom. So it's remarkable, it's very interesting. Even there's really a third point, and that is that the midrash tells us that from the times of Abraham, the Jewish people hadn't done anything wrong like this. Why do we need to go back to the time of Abraham? There's clearly a connection to something that happened with Avraham Avinu, with Abraham. From his times, the Jewish people hadn't been involved in any znus, in any illicit behavior. And yet, here they were. Here they drank from the waters of Sodom, so to speak. And here they ended up with the great-granddaughters of the destruction of Sodom. So what is the midrash coming to teach us? What is the idea here? What is the depth of these midrashim? So I'd like to share with you one more midrash, which I believe holds the key to what's going on here. And there's a connection between this midrash and Gemara and Sukkah. And we'll begin to understand what's going on here. It's an amazing, deep idea, deep concept. And it's something that applies to every one of us. It says like this. The verse speaks about the Jewish person, this Nasi. He was a prince of the tribe of Shimon. You will find out later that his name was Zimri. He had been involved with this Midianite woman. What happened? What was the story? Here's the story. Amar Loi, Eini Nishmas Ela L'Moshe. This woman, at first she said to him, I'm only interested in having relations with Moses. Shekach tiva yisi Balak Abba. This is what my father Balak told me. Shalei Lishma Ela L'Moshe Rabchem. The only person that I should be with is Moses, your teacher. Sh'avi Melech, because my father is a king. Amar Allah. So Zimri said to her, Hare ani gadol kamoisai, I am as great as he is. Le'einem ani avyacha, I'll show you that I'm as great as him, because I'm going to bring you in front of them, in front of Moses. Tfasa b'bleirisa v'via yitzal Moshe. He grabbed her by her hair, brought her in front of Moses. Amar le bin Amram zemater sarasura. He said to him, son of Amram, is this woman permitted to me, or is she forbidden from me? Amar lo asura hilacha. Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, she's forbidden. She's a non-Jew. A non-Jew is not allowed to be with a Jewish person. Amar le Zimri. Zimri said to him, what about your wife? Your wife was a Midyanis. She was from the same place. How come I can't marry this woman? Moses' hands became weakened. He forgot the halach. He forgot the law. V'go kulam bevechia. Amazing thing the midrash says. Everyone started crying. Tichsiv, how do you know that that's true? Because the verse says, V'hema boichim. They were crying. Lama boichim, why were they crying? Shnisrapu yudei ma'isashah. Because at that moment, their hands had become weakened. He forgot the halach, he forgot the law. Mashalamad avadoime. What is this comparable to? What's the analogy to? Lebas melech sheniskashta, likonas lechupa, lisha ba'piryoin. To a princess that got all beautified, she was about to get married, she was about to enter into the palace. The nimtzeis makalkelas amacher. Instead of marrying, instead of being with the man she was supposed to be with, they found out that she had gotten all dressed up and beautified herself, and then had gone off and been with someone else, a different man. What happens there? They're all standing there getting ready for this amazing wedding, and they have nothing to say. Their hands are weakened. They're all crying. They're all sad. They've been betrayed by this princess. Kach Yisrael b'seif 40 shana. In the same way, the people of Israel, at the end of 40 years, chanu ala yardin lavor l'Eretz Yisrael, they were encamped at the Jordan River, about to enter into the land of Israel. Shneimar, as the verse says, Vayachanu ala yardim beis Yishimois ad aval Shittim ba'arvis Moav. They had encamped on the Jordan River, and it refers to our place, to Shittim, and it refers to the fact that they were about to enter into Israel. V'sham nifritzu biznus v'raf yudei Moshe v'dei tzadikim imoi v'hema boichim. The result was that they were involved in illicit behavior, the hands of Moses were weakened, the hands of the righteous along with him, and they were crying. There's a point here in this midrash that it's telling us that the Jewish people are about to get married, so to speak. They're about to enter into the land of Israel. They're about to come into a true relationship with Hashem in the land, which represents that relationship, which is the place where the Jewish people are meant to be, to perform the mitzvahs, to fulfill the commandments, all those that are dependent on the land of Israel, but really all of the commandments are especially made to be done in the land of Israel. They're about to enter into that relationship, and at that moment, they fall. They're involved in avodah zarah, in idolatry, and in this illicit behavior. As the analogy of the midrash goes, they're like that princess who's gone and done the wrong thing. She's been with a different man than the prince she was supposed to marry. Now, this midrash also reminds me of a Gemara in Sukkah, which I'm sure I've quoted numerous times. The Gemara tells us that just as the Jewish people are about to greet Mashiach, the Messiah is about to arrive, the Jewish people have this great war that they have to fight, the war of Gog and Magog, Armageddon, the final war, right before Mashiach's about to come. And in that war, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach, the son of Joseph, who comes from the tribe of Joseph, he is killed in that war. And there are those who say that it's not actually the Mashiach ben Yosef who's killed, but rather the Yetzer Hara that's killed, the evil inclination is destroyed. And the Midrash talks about the Gemara. It's a Gemara in Sukkah at the end of the Masechta, at the end of the tractate, that speaks about the fact that everyone is crying when the Yetzer Hara is destroyed, or when Mashiach ben Yosef is killed, when the Messiah, the son of Joseph, is killed. And I was thinking about the fact that it's clear to me that there's a connection between the Midrash that we just read and that Gemara in Sukkah, which speaks about the crying that goes on. And I believe that the idea is, and it's amazingly deep, the idea is that as we stand at the threshold of a new reality, as we stand at the threshold of entering into Eretz Yisrael, we're about to go under the chuppah, to enter into a true relationship with God, to enter into His home, so to speak. As we're about to enter into a new reality, which is the days of Mashiach, there's a moment in time where there's crying going on. There's crying going on. And what's the crying about? The crying is about the fact that there's an aspect of the Jewish people which is lost. There's an aspect of the Jewish people which is lost. And that is 24,000 people of the tribe of Shimon. Very interesting. That's a whole other shmooze. Why Shimon? That's a whole other conversation. Not for now. But there's a whole piece of the Jewish people that's lost, that's destroyed. 24,000. Why is that happening here? Why is the crying going on? Why is there this destruction that's going on here? And I believe the answer is very connected actually to one of the ideas that I speak about in my book. And that is back to the time of Sodom. Why is it that at the time that Avraham Avinu, Abraham is about to get the information, the same malachim, the same angels, who tell him that he's going to have a child, and that's Isaac, they are the ones who go on and destroy Sodom. And they are the ones who kick Lot out of Sodom. They pull him out. And they bring him to that place where he ends up being with his daughters. It's all connected. And the idea that I shared then, and I believe it's the same idea that we see over here, the idea is that when something new is about to come into the world, when we're about to transcend into a new reality, the Jewish people are about to be born. Yitzchak, Isaac, is going to be the progenitor of the Jewish people. When that's coming into the world, when something good is coming into the world like that, there's a destruction of evil that occurs. There's a destruction of evil. Now, the evil has to manifest to a certain extent in a very strong way in order for it to be recognized and destroyed. And that, I believe, is what happened with Sodom. Sodom, as Chazal, our sages tell us, it saw Malaya. It had reached a point where its measure was full. That meant that it had manifested evil to the point where the evil would now have to be burned off, destroyed. And there's a deep reason why. I'm not going to get into that now, but that's the reality of it. At the same moment that the Jewish people are about to be conceived, born, brought into the world, that new level is about to happen, there needs to be destruction of evil at the same moment. And that's Sodom's destruction. And Lot, very interestingly, he ends up with his children, with his two daughters. They have a child, Moab. Moab is going to cause the Jewish people to sin many, many years later. But also, many, many years after that, there's going to be a great-great-granddaughter of Moab Her name is Ruth. She's going to be the great-grandmother of King David and of Mashiach, of the Messiah. So the destruction of Sodom produces the great-grandmother of Mashiach. And interestingly, it produces it in a very strange way, and that's also another conversation. But what I want to focus in on here is that the midrash clearly is pointing us that there's a connection between Avram, from that time of Avram until now, from the time of Abraham to Sodom, to the daughters of Lot. There's a connection to that time, because that time was a turnover time. It was a moment in time where the world was going up, where a new revelation, a new level was being reached. Whenever a new level is reached, so the evil has to manifest to a certain extent and be destroyed. The Jewish people, even though the Jewish people were amazing and beautiful, and for 400 years, over 400 years, 440 years, they hadn't been involved in any licentious behavior. But latent within the Jewish people was an aspect of the Jewish people which woke up, so to speak, when they drank the waters of Sodom. When they drank that water brought out from the Jewish people that part of the Jewish people which had to be brought up, manifest, and destroyed. That's what happened here. They drank of the waters of Sodom, so to speak, which meant that here Hashem led them to a place where that negative power which was latent within them had to manifest, be decimated. And it's unbelievably ironic that it was manifest as a result of something else that had happened 440 years earlier, as a result of drinking that waters, that Lot had drank those waters and ended up with his own daughters. So there's that connection, that underlying theme, that underlying kind of behind the scenes that went on. But the point here is, and the idea here is, that this, unfortunately, was a necessary evil. That evil had to come out, be destroyed, in order for the Jewish people to be ready to enter into the land of Israel. And it's not a coincidence that Pinchas, the one who ended the Magefa, who destroyed the evil, who killed Zimri and this woman, this Midianite woman, this princess, he was the one who would be one of the two spies who would enter into the land of Israel, as we spoke about not long ago. He was the one who allowed for the possibility of the Jewish people to be able to enter into Israel, because he was the one who nipped the evil in the bud, so to speak, and destroyed it as it manifested. I want to ask you to bless me, and I'm going to bless you, that Hashem should help us to recognize when the stuff that comes up for us, when the evil that comes up in our lives is something that needs to be recognized and destroyed. And recognize that it's something that's necessary sometimes, that there be occasions in our lives that we drink, heaven forbid, of the mayones Shittim. This water can cause us to do things that we wouldn't ordinarily do, that we may have been pure from for 440 years, so to speak. And Hashem should help us to recognize that this is not who we are, but rather this is something that is coming up because we are moving to a new level, perhaps, in our service of Hashem. These challenges are challenges that we have to face off with, and that we need to eradicate the evil from ourselves. Hashem should help us to be able to do that, to recognize it, see it for what it is. And Hashem should help us to get to our individual, personal promised lands. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.